Coming to you live every night, 54 countries, 6 different languages. We have just entered the final hour of Monday the 15th of June. Wanted to say Tuesday, the 16th. Yes, so we are hoping that everybody will be prepared for that important and meaningful holiday tomorrow in South Africa. In the meantime, on the Soul stage, let me welcome Pertunia Nkomo Mofokeng. She's Deputy Dean for Teaching and Learning at Rosebank International. Pertunia is a higher education leader, language specialist, and Deputy Dean Teaching and Learning at Rosebank International, dedicated to advancing academic excellence through innovation, lecture development, and student success. She holds a Master's of Language Practice cum laude and is currently pursuing a PhD in linguistics at Tshwane University of Technology. Beyond academia, she is a Miss South Africa 2026 semi-finalist. So it's both beauty and brains, guys. And she's a very passionate advocate for education, women's empowerment, and community development. Welcome. How are you, Pertunia?
Well, good evening, and good evening to the listeners of Channel Africa. Wow, what an introduction. It's always so good to just hear people speaking so nicely about you. Like that's me.
You say you've
Thank you
done
so much.
exceptionally well, Pertunia. So we want to celebrate you tonight right here on African Diaries.
Thank you so much. It is truly an honor to be with you this evening, and I truly cannot wait for our engagement and to engage with your listeners as well.
So the story of June 16 is a very intrinsic story for the whole entire African continent. It's about young people rising to take up a position and to begin to be taken seriously for what they believe in. 50 years after the Soweto uprising, they call it, the youth of South Africa are still fighting to be recognized.
Mhm. No, no, true, 100%. I think the struggle is still very much there. I think what happened is that it's not more of a struggle that has stopped, but now young people are fighting for the right to equality of
Hmm.
education. So it is still a fight that still exists. I think right now it just a new Mona has evolved, and it is just a new uprise.
So the uprising is no longer equality, it's about better education, it's about economic access. We're not finding any of that.
Correct.
What is the problem?
I think today, if you look at many young South Africans, they have what the youth of 1976 fought for, which is amazing,
Yeah.
and that still resonate as to why we celebrate Youth Day, because an
Hmm.
uprising took place, and we are sowing what others actually we are reaping what others sowed, which is fantastic. But many young South Africans have greater access to education than the previous generation. As a result, they are confronting now new challenges, which are translating into education and into meaningful economic participation. So, as someone who works in higher education and with students, I think the challenge right now is having to know that I've completed school. I've done what I was asked to say. Education is the key to success. I've earned
Hmm.
a qualification, yet I remain uncertain about the future prospects. So, in order to be having equal education, it needs to also be able to have economic access today, which is being able to contribute as well to the society. And many of young people right now are struggling with that. So, I think the struggle has shifted from access right now to opportunity.
Yeah, but the National Bureau of Economic Research data shows youth unemployment is now worse than at the end of
100.
apartheid. Yeah. So
Mhm.
what makes this generation's exclusion different from that pre 1994?
Well, that I think that is a very good question. If you look at the pre-1994 exclusion, it was largely a result that is it was deliberate, It was more
Mm-hmm.
legislative, it was structural barriers. But if you look at today, young people have constitutional rights, they have a formal access to education and the labor market, yet many of them remain excluded from economic participation. So, what actually differentiates from the pre 1994, I think it's what makes this generation experience particularly the difficulty is that the barriers are now often less visible. You know, there's
Yeah.
nothing more
Mm.
painful in our generation when they grow up and like, What are you complaining about? Are you not
Yeah.
able to go to school? You know, during our time, we were not able to. We
Yeah.
fought for the
True.
free. So it makes it less visible because of the scars are not visible. So they include skills mismatch. With this generation, it's more about skills mismatch. It's about economic stagnation. It's about technological disruptions and the unequal access to networks and opportunities. So often, these young people are told that they can succeed if they study. Right? So it's go to school, graduate. But then after all of that, that they discover that that qualification alone is no longer enough. So
Yeah.
that creates a profound sense of frustration because of the expectation has risen while opportunities have not kept to the pace.
Yeah, we were talking about yes, there's some kind of access to education, but the education that we have is not giving economic access to the young
No.
people of South Africa, which is really bad. So, how can we change this trajectory in South Africa?
I think what we are needing to do is that we need to be more deliberate in our structures. And we also need to keep up to what is happening in the economy and in the market. Gone
Mm.
are the days, because if I'm sitting here as someone who studied, you can imagine, I have a daughter right now who's in varsity. I've studied, and by the time my daughter was in school, the things that she was doing in the classroom are things that I can relate to. I'm like, ah, I also did that. Oh, you guys are
Yeah.
also studying on this. So it means that we are not keeping up with the
Ah.
rapid changes that are happening, not only in the economy, but in the market. So the mindset as well needs to shift from us in high institutions of learning, but also from us as a society to say that the curriculum in the classroom needs to also accommodate what is happening in the world, because it means that we are creating learners that are able to memorize, that are able to acknowledge the content, but they are not
Yeah.
moving at the pace of what is really happening in the market. And I think that's where the shift needs to also happen.
So, are you saying that the minister and the Ministry of Education must actually look at the curriculum and make serious changes that can adapt
Definitely.
today's education systems to allow for people to be relevant to the kind of
100%.
expectation, yeah, from the
100% because of
job place?
I
Mm,
cannot yeah, I cannot be with my husband. My husband is 45 years old and our
mm.
daughter sometimes comes with homework from EMS and he's like, "Oh, I did this." That for me is
Yeah,
problematic.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it
I
means
agree.
that our curriculum needs to be moving with the time as well. We need to be teaching our learners in the classroom things that will be beneficial to them so that when
Yeah.
they get to higher education, it's an enhancement of skills.
Yeah, so who needs to begin this conversation? You are somebody who's really well educated. You are within the education system. Have you, as a school or as a representative of the school system, approached the Ministry of Education?
Definitely, but I think as well, your question started. I think I appreciate the question of who needs to make the change or where do we need to start. I think it starts from the foundation phase. And the
Yeah.
conversation needs to be held. So many of the time, when I am in my institution at Rosebank International, when I speak to our lectures, because I'm in support, so the big bunch of what is happening in the classroom, what information are students consuming, how are they receiving it, what is the feedback that we are getting from the students, which is really important to listen to the voice of the students, but to also do research to the industry. That's why we partner up with companies to ask them as well, what do you look for when you're
Okay.
looking for an employee in your department? So I think the other thing that needs to be held is that ground soldiers, and when I speak about ground soldiers, I'm speaking about teachers in the classroom, I'm speaking about lecturers in the classroom, need to also start having a voice and an element of decision making into the curriculum. Because often enough, we have people that are in the high hierarchy that are not really at purview to understand what is happening in the classroom that are mostly the decision makers. But if we implement a lot more of the ground soldiers in the decision making and the implementations of strategies, we will see that a lot of things will change because they are the ones who know what's happening. They are the ones
Okay.
who understand, and the collaboration as well between education, the Department of Education, and higher institutions of learning and schools, and the companies and also the industry to check and gauge. This is what we are teaching in the classroom. Is it translating to what you are wanting to
Yeah.
receive in the workspace?
Hey, Pertunia, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break. There's a lot to talk about. Stay right here on African Diaries. We'll be right
Thank you.
back.
Annika Longi sur Channel Africa.
Musique africaine, des pépites sonores et une escale spéciale du côté de la Côte d'Ivoire et du Cameroun. Cet après-midi, on met à l'honneur la femme africaine à travers deux voix incontournables du continent, deux artistes, deux univers, mais une même force, celle de raconter, de chanter et surtout d'assumer leur identité. Direction d'abord la Côte d'Ivoire avec José, une artiste au franc-parler assumé qui séduit par son authenticité et ses titres qui parlent sans détour de la vie, de l'amour et des réalités féminines. Cap sur le Cameroun avec Charlotte Di Panda, la diva. Une voix douce, élégante et profonde qui incarne une autre facette de la femme africaine entre tradition, émotion et modernité.
Annika Longi, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
African Diaries with Tich Mataz.
Welcome back. If you're joining me, it is now 26 after 11. A very special guest talking education and empowerment. A day away from Youth Day. Pertunia, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Importantly, first quarter 2026 unemployment rose to 32.7 nationally, 60.9% for ages 15 to 24 and 46.6% for 25 to 34. What can we do? Unemployment is hurting the youth.
Yeah, I think the more you say the stats, my heart really sinks. Hey, 32% of unemployment sits nationally, and for 25% of I mean, sorry, 40% of that sits with the ages of 25 to 34. So you can understand that's literally the almost half of your youth.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start looking at the fact that employment is about much more than earning an income.
Okay.
And the minute we are seeing such statistics, then you can imagine what this does to young people, what this does to their dignity, what it does to their spirit, or even the element of hope, especially for someone when you follow the routine of life. There's a routine of life that we call, especially as Africans. And that routine of life is that you grow up, you become respectful, you respect your parents, you go to school, you complete school with the notion that in completion of your studies, you will get a good job. If not, you will be able to be a good businessman.
Yeah.
And when all of those things don't follow that pattern, it can be a bit disheartening. And seeing such statistic, especially as a young person and someone who is in the higher education, who continues to motivate kids to tell them that education is indeed the key, it's really painful. And I think youth unemployment, therefore, truly becomes a question of dignity and self-worth and belonging. And it's not really simply about giving back to the society anymore. It's
Yeah.
now becomes more individualized. And I think the more we stop treating it as statistics and actually see how deepening and how concerning it is.
But I like the fact that you spoke about, one, growing up, getting an education, getting a job, and then becoming respected within society. Now that there are no jobs, do you think entrepreneurship is going to be the response needed?
100%. I think we need to come to a point as Africans where we're not only honest with each other, but we also face the reality. We are now having to motivate more of entrepreneur skills to be enhanced so that we have more of entrepreneurs, so that we are not having more people queuing up um, to an element of seeking jobs, but instead to be job creators. So that in the society that we're in, once solutions have been put in place, they can find us while we are moving. Because unfortunately, something needs to be done, and it needs to be done now.
Yeah, I
And while
agree.
conversations are held in the boardroom, young people are losing faith every single day, and statistics continue to go up.
With modernity, one of the things that is really going to be a great challenge is AI. AI is erasing, first level entry jobs. So
Mm.
how are we going to be able to cap that?
I think I was going to be surprised if we had this conversation without the element of AI. Hey,
AI.
ah,
Yes.
so I think AI is coming in and showing us that we need to keep up.
Mm,
Whether you see it as an enemy or you see it as an element that needs us to actually pull up our socks, especially as Africans, and look and observe our ways of teaching, our strategies, and everything. Because right now, employers increasingly expect graduates to arrive with actually a combination of technical knowledge and practical capacities
uh,
or
mm,
capabilities. So the routine tasks that were once provided in the learning platforms are now increasingly being automated. So, as a
mm,
result, employers are looking for graduates who can think critically, solve problems, communicate effectively, and work confidently in um, with digital technology. So I think the expectation today is not just simply that graduates know the information, but that they can apply it rapidly and in the rapidly changing environment. I think gone are those days where you need to memorize and
yeah.
provide a memorandum. Right now, we need to actually enhance the skills of critical thinkers, problem solvers, and communicators. I tell my students all the time to say that you can be a top student in the classroom and you can have the greatest marks. But what your academic transcript or qualification will do is knock on that particular door. But whether they allow you inside the door or you go through, it will be through the skills, how you articulate yourself, how you communicate, how you speak about innovation, and what you bring to the table. So just saying that I did very well academically or I have a qualification in one, two, three, and four is no longer enough. That's why AI is able to elevate some of the things. So when we come in, we need to come in with critical thinkers, graduates that are critical thinkers and that are innovators and are able to communicate ideas and thoughts the way AI can, because the human element is still there. But we
Yeah.
need to find a way on how to articulate that.
Wow, you guys have really got a big problem because what you're saying right here
Yeah.
is digital literacy, problem solving, adaptability, AI. These perhaps should be the new classroom lessons
Modules.
required.
Yeah.
Modules, that's it. Classroom modules required in order to empower the education system.
Definitely. Maybe I should be calling you for one of our module development, hey? Definitely. I think
Yes.
that is the direction we need to be moving in. I don't like comparison, especially comparing African countries such as South Africa to developed countries, but we can learn a lot from countries such as China. If you look at their curriculum in the classroom, it's very practicalized and diverse, and it speaks to what their countries' need are in the society and the economy. They're teaching practicality of skill and critical thinking. They're giving a problem from a literally a 4-year-old and asking them to say solve without guidance first to see what is the gap. We are needing to also look at that, evaluate what does South Africa need for every other African countries, or what do we need? Then from there, take it and apply it into the classroom to say, from the need that we have in our society, how are we developing the community helpers who will apply and close that gap of the need?
Wow. So the education environment and system needs tre- to tremendously evolve beyond tuition, other problems that the students face are transportation, the costs, data
Mhm.
costs, food security. Mental health becomes a problem. How can we deal with
Yeah.
this?
I think I'm really happy, especially when you're talking about mental health. I think our generation, as much as we like to laugh about it and we call them the two kids and say that mental health has always been a struggle. But unfortunately, right now, we are living in a time whereby now is a conversation we no longer ignore. We are having how many students are committing suicide
Mm,
because of struggling with mental health. Mental health is a real issue, and that's why you are seeing as well so much effort being put. I won't speak on all institutions, but I know in our institution, when it comes to wellness, we even have a department called student wellness, and I know other institutions will have that, where we focus on the students' wellness and mental health, in understanding that once your mindset and once your mind is not in a good place, it has the ability to affect you as well in the classroom.
yeah,
So I think mental health plays a critical role. And with the statistics that you just gave, it does not help.
yeah. 50 years on from June 16, 1976. What is the biggest lesson you think, this generation has learned from the last generation?
Mm. Sometimes you look at them and you're like, have we learned? And I
Mm,
think they have the biggest lesson is that meaningful change happens when young people are empowered and their voices are heard. And I think that's what we tend to forget sometimes, that the students of 1976 refused to accept the future that
yeah,
had been decided for them, because that was what it was. A future was decided for them, and a layout or a blueprint had been put in front of them, and they refused. They
yeah,
challenged the systems that limited opportunities and demanded a better future. That was a choice on their side. And today's challenges are different, definitely, but the principles remain the same. So
yeah,
I think what that said is that young people must be active participants in shaping policies, education systems, and economic opportunities. They must be in the forefront of telling the institutions, of telling the government to say that this is what we want to see, and this
yeah,
is where we think we want to be, and this is what we think needs to be done in order for us to get there. So as educators, or as a lecturer as well, and a deputy dean in Heidi, I'm putting myself as well in the mix of all of that to say that we also have a responsibility, not only to teach students, but to also create environments where their voices matter and their aspirations are taken seriously, and it
yeah,
doesn't become like a memorandum of activation to say that we got
yeah,
you. We
yeah.
need to stop saying all the right things and start actioning.
Yeah. Petunia, tomorrow is a very important day, and a lot of people,
Yes.
are possibly looking to learn, not just from what happened 50 years ago, but to learn from people such as yourselves. If a young South African scholar is listening today, how can they best deal with the problems that they're facing in order for them to reclaim dignity, independence, and empowerment?
um I think, if anything, I am sitting here and saying that I'm an example of what perseverance, rigor, and
Okay.
push in the right direction can do. Can they not let what stands as a challenge right now become
Mm-hmm.
what they see as the final resolution, or as the final communication or message to them? They need to, if anything, can they take courage in the youth of 1976 and what happened? I think, if anything, as much as when we watch Serafina, we see one of the greatest movies that was created in South Africa, and one of the greatest musicals in South Africa, but it lets us remember, because we know that as much as some of these things are dramatized, but it reminds us of what the youth of 1976 went through, and they're willing to go through all of that because of they knew that it was worth all of it. So my message would also be to not wait for your first formal job to begin building your future. Look for opportunities to develop your skills. I'm someone who took advantage of everything that your short courses I did, your digital certifications, communication short skills, volunteer opportunities, internships, community projects, and entrepreneurial initiatives. Build a portfolio that demonstrate what you can do, not only what you have studied. And
Pertunia,
I
thank you
know
so
that
much.
it is
Yeah.
easier said than done. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for having joined me tonight. I wish you the best in your career, and we hope
Thank you
that
so much.
tomorrow's day may begin to reignite and re-excite young people within South Africa, so that they may learn and grow and make greatness their vision.
Thank you so, so much. And I hope that they had that and they take that to heart. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity and good evening to yourself and the listeners.
Thank you. My very special guest tonight on the Soul Stage, Pertunia Nkomo Mofokeng. She's the Deputy Dean for Teaching and Learning at Rosebank International. What a conversation.